Secretary.
Look at me.
Let's talk about that game. Let's talk about Zach Wilson again. Mike White not cleared medically to play, so it's the Zach Wilson show. Mums in New Jersey.
And rejoice.
Rejoice.
Yeah, figure out something else to do this weekend, moms, because Zach Wilson is starting for your New York Fighting Jets. Robert Saleh says this will be a great opportunity for Zach, and we'll talk about fantasy in 1 second. I just want to take one quick moment to say I agree with him. This is an amazing opportunity, and obviously the Jets didn't draw it up this way, but if ever there was an opportunity to salvage Zach Wilson, a guy, again, that they spent the second overall pick in the NFL draft on, if there was a chance to do it, it's this week, right? Because now he can come in as the savior. We expected Mike White to start. Mike White not medically cleared to play. Zach Wilson gets the start at home against Detroit. A playoff berth is on the line in essence, basically. The winner of this game really keeps their playoff hopes alive. The loser of this game, really tough to see a path for them to make the playoffs. So both the Lions and the Jets really need this win. And it's a great matchup, obviously, given the struggles of the Lions defense. So if Zach Wilson comes in, and this is a guy who went 5-2 as a starter. I mean, people forget that about Zach Wilson. So if he comes in and beats the Lions, and by the way, plays well, or at least even decently, then I think maybe, at least I think there's a chance that you could see him as the starting quarterback of the Jets next year. His Jets career, I think, is salvaged.
Yep, particularly because the 2 weeks after this as well. Jacksonville at home, that's a good matchup.
Yep.
And then Seattle, which is a great matchup as well. That's on the road, but it could be the Zach Wilson show. Hopefully Mike White gets better soon.
It will be really interesting to see what happens.
If he plays well.
If he plays well, and then what do they do against Jacksonville in Week 16?
On a short
But that's
week.
why and that's the Thursday night game. But that's why Robert Saleh gets paid what he gets paid. It is worth noting here. I think this is important. So what do you do with the Jets player? You're not starting Zach Wilson.
No.
There's 3 fantasy impacts for this game. Tell me if you agree with these. Number 1 is so all of a sudden Mike White, who was my favorite streamer this week, if you're suddenly scrambling because you lost Kyler Murray, or you didn't love whoever, you didn't want to play Geno Smith against the Niners, whatever it is. So I do think all of a sudden you've lost a streamer. Zach Wilson to me comes in at my QB 16. So he's like a mid-tier QB 2, and what I'm nervous about, to be clear. So there's that. But and I also think Elijah Moore, who I think was shaping up to be kind of a sneaky wide receiver 3 this week if Mike White was playing against Detroit, I think you can't trust Elijah Moore, right?
Yep.
Right. So for me, I think the 2 people you're starting, you're talking Bam Knight. The touches should still be there with Bam Knight, as we've talked about. 17 touches each of those last 3 games. Remember, in the games in which Zach Wilson started, Jets averaged over 27 rushing attempts a game. They tried to hide Zach Wilson, and I think they want to do that again. So I think they'll be very run heavy against Detroit, even though Detroit has been better against the run recently. And then Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was sort of up and down with Zach Wilson under center, but he did have 2 different games where he had 17 or more fantasy points with Zach Wilson as his quarterback. You lower, I think I had Garrett Wilson at 12. I moved him down to 15 in my ranks. Still a mid-tier wide receiver 2, but I'm still starting Garrett Wilson. Don't get cute. Doesn't matter who quarterback is. Garrett Wilson's too good. This matchup is too good. You're starting Garrett Wilson.
Yep. A lot of Zach Wilson's really bad games as well came against the Patriots and the Bills defenses. Those are much better defenses. There was weather involved in some of those games as well. So I think that against the Lions defense, he should be decent enough where Garrett Wilson can provide value. Probably not wide receiver 1 value, but good enough that you're starting him comfortably. Let's talk about Tyler Huntley.
Okay.
Can Mark Andrews... Can he get back on track? Because Tyler Huntley, he's going to play cleared from the concussion protocol. He had an amazing rapport with Mark Andrews end of last season, but Mark Andrews has just been anonymous for a long time now.
He has been, but you know who else has been anonymous for a long time? George Kittle! And he went off.
Back with a vengeance.
So, yes, it has been a tough run here for Mark Andrews and his managers, as well as you see it there on your screen. Under 12.5 fantasy points in 4 straight. He's had single digit each of the last 2 games, but he's my tight end 2 this week. He's still Mark Andrews. He's still the focal point of that passing attack. He's playing the Browns. They're on the road at Cleveland. I can't imagine benching Mark Andrews. Again, a tight end is so brutal. For all my bitching about George Kittle, I still had him ranked as a top 5 tight end coming into this week because he's George Kittle, and it was a good matchup against Seattle. And so I hear you. I get it. I understand the numbers. It has not looked pretty. I'm still starting. I think Tyler Huntley will play better in this game. He's been cleared from the concussion protocol. He's going to start this game for Baltimore. He had a lot of success with Huntley last year. I'm starting Mark Andrews. If I lose with Mark Andrews, I lose with Mark Andrews. But it is what it is. He's one of the best in the NFL.
Yep, you got to go down with that ship. Don't get cute. All right. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, with their respective injuries, hamstring for Higgins, finger for Boyd. They participated second straight practice yesterday. I guess you just have to trust these guys, particularly Higgins. If Higgins is active, you just have to play him.
I think so. Last week was so weird.
Yeah, it's
super weird. It was super weird about he got off the injury report and then but they knew he wasn't good to go and then I guess Higgins ran onto the field. They didn't even know he was going to do it, and then he played the one. Whole thing is super weird. And, anyway, I'm going to get myself in trouble if I talk further. I'll just say this. I agree with you that it was super frustrating and weird and, given all the complexities around legal sports betting that now happen and the integrity of the game, it just very questionable, right, that the guy got off the injury report and then but they knew he was injured. So anyway, some questions that should be asked of Zach Taylor, I think, and the Cincinnati Bengals, given that. But that's not my job. My job is to talk about fantasy, and I will say that, yes, I agree with you. If T. Higgins is active, I'm starting T. Higgins. He's currently my wide receiver 16 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A secondary, by the way, that has looked very susceptible recently. They've made some bad plays.
I feel a lot better about T. Higgins after watching last night's game because Seattle's defense is not good at all, and San Francisco basically on offense scored pretty much 14 points because they got the turnover, which took it down to the 1 yard line, not really crediting them with that. So the fact that Seattle was largely able to contain a San Francisco offense that did whatever they wanted against Tampa Bay, that Tampa Bay defense is not very good at the moment. They're banged up. They've got no pass rush at all since Shaquille Barrett went down with the season-ending injury. So I think it's going to be a monster game for the Bengals pass catchers.
4 of the last 5 full games that T. Higgins has played, he either has 100 yards or a touchdown. Again, Joe Burrow's playing as good as any quarterback in the NFL right now.
Yep.
You're starting T. Higgins, although Tyler Boyd, I don't care. No interest.
Yeah. Bengals, their team total in that game is 23.5. I think they'll get to 24 points against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Let's talk about the over there.
Yep. Let's talk about Dallas Goedert. He said that things are trending in the right direction to play in Week 15 against the Bears. You trusting him if he's active?
Yeah, again, A, he's a tight end. B, by the way, this guy was really good before he went down. 60 yards in 4 of the last 6 games, 60 or more yards, I should say, in 4 of the last 6 games he played. Back-to-back touchdown games before he went out. They're playing the Bears this week. Jalen Hurts, MVP favorite, my fantasy ride or die, making me look smart. That's what I had to think about last night. I'm like, as I'm watching George Kittle just literally, prance through the Seattle secondary.
The blanket of Jalen Hurts to keep me warm.
Exactly. Yeah. Just I wrap myself in his warm, fuzzy fantasy points. Dallas Goedert, I think, is a top 6 play at tight end, assuming he is active. Looks like he's on the way to go. It's interesting, though, in terms of what you do with Devontae Smith, right? In weeks 1 through 10, when Dallas Goedert was active, he was just wide receiver 32 on a points per game basis, right? He was averaging just under 7 targets a game, under 60 yards per game as well. Now, he's come into his own. He had the bad week 1, and then we did see it was more inconsistent, I should say. But I think he goes from a no-brainer, you're absolutely starting him, to a slightly more risky, high upside, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 this week. I'm likely still starting Devontae Smith, but it depends on what the other options are. I would want to be like, okay,
he's probably getting.
It's no longer a no-brainer.
No,
it's still likely, but it's still a slight question mark as to whether, depending on your other options, because of Dallas Goedert being there. As you see on your screen, in the last 4 games with Dallas Goedert out, Smith is averaging 5 for 73 a game. He's averaging over 15 fantasy points per game. He's getting 8 targets a game. Devontae Smith's been great with Goddard out.
Yeah, my concern with Devontae Smith would be that the Eagles are 9-point favorites in this game. They've got a gigantic clash against Dallas the next week on a Saturday.
Right.
I think, and they are a team as well. They don't go all out running up the score through the passing game in the second halves of games. They run the ball. Jalen Hurts might not have 7 pass attempts in the second half, so that could hurt Devontae Smith, but you're still probably going to have to start him. Unless you've got Bam Knight as an alternative and a flex.
Yeah, I think that's right. So like I said, I think prior to the Goddard coming back news, I would have said you're starting Smith no matter what. And now I think it's all right, see who else you have in your lineup. Smith is probably still your best option, but I think you might want to just look and consider it. To your point, Bears are a bottom 5 run defense over the last month. Again, in a game in which they're 9-point favorites, you expect them to be able to run significantly. Miles Sanders made my love list this week for a reason.
Yep. All right, let's talk about Damian Harris. He was limited again in Thursday's practice with his thigh injury. Any confidence in starting him against a pretty porous Raiders defense after he's missed the last 2 games?
Yeah, it really depends on Ramondre Stevenson. Now, so we're shooting this Friday at whatever it's now, 12:25. Long first block. Anyway, so we're shooting this at 12:25 on a Friday, and so I haven't seen any reports on Ramondre Stevenson if he's practiced at all today. We'll find out. The game's in Las Vegas, so we'll see if he's on the trip, if he makes the trip. Assuming Ramondre Stevenson is not playing in this game, then yes, I feel a lot more confident about Damian Harris in a game in which, believe it or not, the Patriots are actually now slight underdogs. It's gone from them favored to now they're underdogs, 1.5, whatever. But it's basically a pick 'em. Vegas has not been great overall. Like, I think you can run on Las Vegas. I certainly think that's what they're going to want to do against the Raiders overall. You feel better about the pass-catching running backs because they're top 5 in the NFL in terms of most receiving yards and most catches allowed to running backs. The Raiders are. But who's most likely to score a touchdown in this game? It's Damian Harris, if Ramondre Stevenson's out. Yep. So assuming he's out, Harris would be high 30s for me. Again, a touchdown-dependent flex for me.
Yep.
Not a must-start because he's not going to have any passing game usage. That'll be Pierre Strong if Ramondre Stevenson is out.
Yep, Harris still going to be your best option in that backfield if Ramondre misses, though. All right, we're going to go to...
No passing. It doesn't really get involved in the passing game here. No. Do think he gets in the end zone. I'd like him for an anytime touchdown here. Yep. But, again, a touchdown-dependent flex is what Damian Harris would be if Ramondre was out.
All right, we're going to break. When we come back, it's Flex Friday. Tackle, start, sit questions.
Oh, tackle. Unlike Seattle. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.